What's up? Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our stream, this week's stream. In today's stream, we're going to be reviewing WWDC design details. I know that this is probably one of the craziest weeks of 2023 with the headset and everything. Um, but we're going to get into all of that, literally all of that, in just a sec. So, let me pull up my chat here. Let's pull up chat. What's up, gang? Let's see. Where is chat? Good to see you all here. We are going to get started in just a bit. I just cannot see my chat though. Relays. Okay, we're ready to get started. Today, we're going to be reviewing some of these details. Very quick. I want to hear from you right now. Outside of the price, right? We're not going to be talking about price, right? This is not let's talk about the price. No kidney jokes, guys. No kidney jokes. I hate those kidney jokes. We're going to be talking about design details today. And just a side note on that. Just a side note on that. Is my audio fine? Because I'm just going to do a quick check before we get started. But yeah. This is a new setup. And I'm going to show you that. Okay, we're back. Ooh, there we go. Finally. This is what I was waiting for. No, don't do that. New setup? No, this is not a new setup. This week I am streaming from Budapest. So this is my apartment here. I'm here for a week. Just thought I would do a little vacation before the cohort officially starts. So this is just my hotel room. Literally travel setup, but hello, amazing. A lot of people here. Folks, this is going to be a really good session. So definitely invite your friends. Retweet my tweet. I want to see more people here. And right now, I'm going to load up my slides and we're going to get started. Audio is great. Awesome. So first up, I have a bunch of screenshots here. Design details. What I want to do is we're going to be diving into the most exciting details, and I'm going to be adding some context. I literally have a folder with 177 screenshots that I'm just going to quickly go through today. These are some details. Outside of that, just an FYI, we have a more detailed video coming out on this where we're going to be talking about what exactly does this mean for designers, how different as well as how similar is it to what we have right now. And what I mean by that is how similar is it in terms of user experience, the HCI, the human computer interaction of it. What's so exciting about this new device? We're going to be talking a lot about spatial computing, right? So again, it's only been 2 days. Give us some time. We're going to be jumping into that. For now, I'm going to do a quick screen share and we're going to jump into this, okay? Right here. Let's go. Let's go. So, starting up, really interesting to see a lot of the. I love to see that the bento is still in style. Let's hide this sidebar. I love to see that the bento is still in such style. This layout, I think Apple is probably the first to do it. today this is a UI design pattern. This is called the bento pattern. The reason it's called so is because this resembles a Japanese bento box that has these multiple individual elements. But what's interesting about this is a really good way to show a lot of details, a lot of information in one screenshotable image, right? This really nice pattern. I'm loving it. I love the bento pattern. I'm so glad we have it. But these were some of my initial bentos. Now I actually want now looking at this. I was really I was like, bro, I want to literally go to some old WWDCs and find out where did this bento pattern start. Like, what was the first time that they used it? Definitely going to be doing that. I think it's so cool that this kind of encapsulates all this data because you can now compare this bento screenshot across WWDCs to see that exact evolution of these features. So love this, love the bento design. Just a few of these, but let's jump into it. Right, a quick note: when we were watching WWDC, when we were watching WWDC, they did start with these. So before we get to the exciting part, the thumbnail, the thing that all of you are here for, it's not a headset, it's a spatial computer. Before we get to that, let's talk about some of these changes. I want to talk about this, and then we'll jump into what we're all here for, the Vision Pro. Starting off, loving these customization features. I think this is really dope. What's so interesting here? Why is this new? Why is this not possible to do before? This level of personalization on an older device. Now, most of us don't really save contacts with photographs, right? So taking that approach, very difficult to do. But I really loved seeing this. I loved seeing some of this language stuff here as well. But along with Animoji, along with these pictures, the same tech that you kind of see on top here, the layering tech that works with wallpapers as well. Cool to see that. Chetan Lamba. Now, here's what I'm thinking, right? If Chetan Lamba sir is my mama, will I really save my contact as a will I really save my contacts with photos? Most likely not, right? But what's so interesting about this is the fact that Apple can now do avatar capture, right? When we saw that Apple recreates your face when you're wearing the headset, so when you're FaceTiming, people don't see it. We'll see that later in the stream. But what's interesting about this, it just got me realizing that it's probably now possible to automatically populate these. The fact that on device machine learning has been getting much better, it's likely that these automatically get populated, right? It would have been almost impossible otherwise, right? So here you can kind of see source, and this is a drop down, right? Just design details. This is all I'm going to be doing today's stream. This is a drop down contact photo shared by Chetan. Now, this means it's being pulled from Chetan, who has an iPhone, and he set this contact image, which goes through Apple ID. But the fact that there's a drop down probably means you have a few more options. I would be looking forward to see if there's an auto detect where it can actually just do that, because there's no way I'm going in and setting these for all my contacts, especially the green bubble guys, the green bubblers, or Android folks as we like to call them. Love this interaction. This particular feature that you're seeing here, we first saw this in the wallpaper customization options. So long press on your wallpaper, you can kind of go in and you can kind of set these. You can go in and create these crazy looking wallpapers. That's where we first saw this. Apple is bringing that to contacts as well, where you can actually edit this. Now again, do I really have the time to be doing this? Maybe for my wife, maybe for the people I talk to the most. For everybody else, Apple, you're really going to have to do this by yourself. I don't have the time to do that. But seeing this, like, this is such a cool screenshot. Love this. But my biggest concern, yes, do it automatically. I don't want to be setting these for people. Few more features. Voicemail. Now, India mein to we've never had voicemail anyways. So I doubt I doubt this is coming to us, but good to see this. A very interesting note here, right? And I'm going to show you this note when we read some of these features. What's happening here, my guess, is it's a voice to text. And of course, that is using some machine learning model. Another quick note here, Apple did not use the word AI at all anywhere in the keynote. Think about how strong the temptation is given that AI is the flavor of the current shift that we are going through, right? The words Apple has used, machine learning, this is something they've been doing all WWDC, all keynotes, right? They've always called it machine learning. Secondly, what is interesting is when they showed this screenshot, this one right here, the one that auto transcribes your voice notes, they call it transformers. We use on device transformers. What is transformers? GPT. The T stands for transformers, generative pre-trained transformers. So very interesting. I love geeking out over language details like this. It's very important, right? Most people would not really think about the language, but language is important because that people like us, purists, right? People in tech, we know what these words are, but to the average person, acronyms suck, right? I don't want to hear an acronym. I don't want to be like, oh, the same reason why GPT, for GPT to be the mainstream term that is used, is weird. In the same way that NFTs, for NFTs to be the digital term, it's weird. It's like saying if Apple were to do NFTs, they would call them digital collectibles. Why? Because that's a more human term. So language is really important, and I noticed a bunch of those during this keynote. Transformers, that's what they used for. Um, Actually, Transformers was for the next thing. Let's quickly jump forward here. Transformers was for the voice to text. But anyways, there's a few more of these. Let's talk about it when we get there. But iMessage, guys, I'll be honest. Who the hell uses iMessage? I would love to use iMessage, but unfortunately, not everybody I know has an iPhone. Most people do, but I think a lot of them do. Android, guys, I'm not going to talk about it. So most of these features, unfortunately, probably not going to be using it. But I would be excited to see other apps add this. This is such a simple feature, right? WhatsApp. I want WhatsApp to have this. WhatsApp needs to add this. And here's a mini prediction. This is probably not even a very crazy one. WhatsApp is probably going to be adding this as a feature within the year. Also, I know designer friends of mine who work at WhatsApp. So if by any chance you're watching this, pitch this to your bosses. Pitch this to your bosses because unless it's already been done, this is a straightforward feature, right? Pitch it, go to whoever you need to get this out. We want this for WhatsApp. Do that. You know who I'm talking about. Inline location, great to see this. Again, WhatsApp share with a much better UI. But what was interesting is at a very basic level, on a tech perspective, it's location sharing. Location sharing means you are sharing your coordinates at a certain duration. There is how often that you update. You update it every second or every 5 seconds. The base is location sharing. But what I liked about this was it makes it more human. So it's not pure location sharing. The purpose is actually a check-in, right? So very nice to see that directly right here in this layer. Most people that I know, most of the times I have used WhatsApp location sharing. It is usually, bro, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes. I'm going to be there in 30 minutes. So great to see this. A lot of deep integration, right? So not just location sharing and bro, that's the feature. It's location sharing, but very nicely thought through the whole journey of it. The journey is there is a start where you set this, you send it, which starts sharing location, and the deep integration here with notifications lets you change it, right? I'm sure you and I, we've both faced this at some point, which is we we shared location. We're like, पहुंच जाएंगे थोड़ी देर में. Let's share it for 15 minutes, and then 15 minutes gets over, and now you're looking at your phone, or your friend send you this location, and you're looking at your phone, and you're like, bro, like location is not sharing anymore. There should be here probably, but should I send a message now and should I ask them to share their location again? Bro, live location expired. Can you send me that? Avoids that, right? It blends that into the background. So nice to see this. Nice to see this as well, which is if somebody has sent you the location and you are keeping track of them, then this, which is it's been X time, why is the person not here, right? This just brings that to the surface. Real quick, guys, I want to see your chats. I know you're enjoying the stream, but really quick, please stay active in the chat. We're going to keep talking as we go through this. Questions, by the way, I would love to do questions. Unfortunately, I have 170 slides to go through. So for this particular live stream, I am going to be only doing super chat questions. Maybe not actually. I'll keep that open. But if you have an important question, let's just say that. If you have an important question, drop a super chat. I'll check it out. I'll answer it. Let's keep going. This, I just thought it was nice. A small note here, the fact that you can send cash, I think that's pretty dope. Again, not an Apple specific thing, but interesting to see in the same way that you can send files, right? Photos, stickers. You can also send money. Good to see that. We know money is digital today. I'm not really making a crypto reference also, although a little bit, but nice to see this. All right, let's talk about this. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but when before AirDrop, I think AirDrop, if I'm not wrong, came out iOS 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. iOS 7 is when AirDrop came out. Before that, that was the time when I had an Android, by the way, pre iOS 7. I had an iPod Touch, so I know what skeuomorphism was, but I had an Android. There was this app called Bump, and basically what it do was you bump your thing and it does a transfer. And I think it was based on Bluetooth or NFC. Probably not NFC, probably Bluetooth. But very nice to see this. I think AirDrop is one of those features that is pretty much magic. Works. Initially a couple years back, it would work about 50% of the time, but I don't know what they've done. But AirDrop is amazing now. Pretty much always works. Very rare that it doesn't. AirDrop across devices has become more invisible if you notice. So if I want to send a image via AirDrop, I can also just copy the image. And so instead of going and doing share, AirDrop, waiting, clicking, doing that, I can copy and on my computer go and do a paste. I forgot what this feature was. It was a few keynotes back, but good to see that being pushed even further. This is a good one. Physicality, which is sharing contact details. I don't have the screenshot of this, but the fact that they went with the customized cards, right? You saw the beautiful looking cards that we saw earlier. Let's see. You see these. Now, this card, to be able to set the font, style, all of this stuff, and when you meet somebody and you want to share your number, like, bro, give me your number, or bro, I'm going to reach out to you, being able to do this, see the other person's photo along with their customized text or whatever, I think is really cool. Really, really cool. So that to me is a very good example of how Apple reuses a lot of things, and we like to just call that ecosystem, right? Apple ecosystem. Would love to see that. More examples of AirDrop. This might seem like a very basic feature, right? Talking about it from a UX perspective, whenever you have actions that take a long amount of time, you typically want to show system status. So tell me if it's going to take 5 minutes, right? I don't want to wait. If it's faster, if it's just a couple of seconds, you don't need to tell me the time, but just show me a loader. A common problem with AirDrop is when you're sending a lot, if it gets interrupted, it's unexpected behavior, right? Either half the photos get sent or doesn't get sent. So good to see this, right? Something very basic, crazy that Apple is adding it so late, but just goes to show that there is always improvements you can make to your core experiences, right? It doesn't have to be futuristic tech. It can be something as basic as showing system status. This one, um, this one made me feel something. Let me just say that ability to listen to music together when you're near each other. Now, of course, I know some of you might be familiar with that. There's some app, right, where you can sync phones and you can listen, you can make it a big speaker. This is very interesting to me because um, earlier in my career, I worked on a music app. I quit my job with a bunch of friends, started a music startup. Our whole purpose was listening to music together. And it didn't work out for many reasons, which I can talk about later. But it's good to see that the core concept, right? This is a small mini validation for me. The core concept is that people like sharing experiences. Now, of course, generic, let me go deeper, right? That's not the best way to say it. Presence. If I'm sitting opposite to you, you feel my presence, which is you can see me, you can probably smell my, fucking Tom Ford, Oud Wood, whatever. You might feel the vibrations as I tap on the table. That's presence, right? You feel presence in the multiple ways when you're with somebody. But how do you do that online? This is probably not a good example of it, but I'm going to show you a few more examples. And the reason I mention it is another example of this would be when you're in Figma, there is presence there. When you're in WhatsApp and somebody's typing, you know they are in the room with you right now, right? That's presence. A presence indicator, the WhatsApp typing symbol, that's a presence indicator. It shows that the person is here right now. Increasingly, that's becoming more and more common, right? We were maybe first to kind of listen. That's was roughly the idea, but great to see presence, and I'm going to point out a lot more examples of that. I also believe that presence might be the killer app for Vision Pro, but we'll get there. This was Transformers when they said Transformers. I do see a comment here, which is I think the two Transformers are different. Maybe they are, but my guess is they are talking about the same thing. Although I'm wondering why they said Transformers, why they did not just say on device machine learning like they typically do. Whatever. Zoom in a bit. Nah, too much. Okay. You guys with me here? Listen. No, it's not listen. It was LISN, but that's fine. Uh, cool. NVD. The journal app. Let's talk about the journal app. Um, when WWDC was going on, just a quick note, we were doing a watch party in Discord, right? So all 10K designers alumni, we were in the alumni Discord group. We were doing a watch party, and the chat was popping. One comment that I saw in the chat, I don't remember who it was that when Android has system apps, nobody wants to use it, right? Android, nobody wants to use the system apps. iOS, when a system app comes up, people are like, finally. Very interesting difference. I'm sure you can tell why. I don't really need to talk about it, but it's good to see that. Good to see a journal app. This, what makes it different from existing journal apps, right? It's not the first journal app to ever exist. There have been journal apps pretty much forever. But most journal apps, the way they work is they are pretty much a modified notes app with reminders. That's what a basic journal app is. Because journaling is all about building the habit of journaling. So if you do the action of journaling multiple times, that becomes a habit of journaling. If you develop the habit of journaling and actually make a lot of journals, over time, you start getting the benefit of journaling, which is the same time last year, what was I going through? Your journal app will probably give you a notification saying this is what you are going through. But do you think, I'll tell you this, like, I've never used a journal app. I know a friend of mine who's been using a journal app, Jenil, in fact. He's been using a journal app for a couple of years, like 4 5 years or so. And he pretty much knows how he was feeling to the day years ago, right? But he put in that work, so that's why he gets to get the benefit. When Apple does a journal app, you're pretty sure you can be guaranteed that they've thought about stuff like this. The habit of journaling is useful, or rather, the journaling as a concept is only useful if you build a habit. If you don't, it might as well be your notes app, right? How does Apple solve that? This is how they do it. In our humane video, we introduced this idea of the intelligence age, about how we are currently, industrial age, information age, intelligence age. This to me is a great example of intelligence age, which is my phone knows what I've done throughout the day. So why just show me an empty text field and say, tell me what you did? Right? Why not? You know what I did. I did it on you. I did it on my phone. Why not use that as the base and then ask me to do it? So if I went somewhere, bring it to my memory that I went there today or this week, so that when I'm journaling, I remember to write it. Podcast. Now you might be wondering, why is a podcast needed for a journal? But dude, if I spend an hour listening to Gaurav Munjal's podcast, The Ken, right? There were a lot of good insights in there. So my day in some ways is flavored by these things. It's flavored by the pictures I took, the places I went, the people I talked to, the music I listened to, the media I consumed, the activities I did. And so, very nice to see that. Right here, I can kind of start a note instead of just saying, new note. What I can do is I can use this as the context to start a new one. So in this case, I can talk about my journal in context of my morning visit to the beach, in context of when I was at the gym today cycling, listening to fucking heavy metal or something, right? I can add my experience with this online media or UI or interfaces rather than coming up with it. Because coming up with it is difficult. It takes time. Most people cannot just start writing immediately. They have to think first and then they have to write. But when they start writing, they have to think about editing. And so they forget what they initially wanted to write. It's a problem. Okay, let's keep going. This is the journal. This is what it looks like. These are the little context images. Would be nice to see what music was I listening to 2 years ago. This probably makes me do that. How good will this be at maintaining the habit of journaling? How does it use notifications? Not sure about that. So let's see. This is my journal timeline view. The reason I screenshotted this is a new pattern. This is a new pattern. I don't think I've seen this anywhere. So good to see that. The way this interaction works is you swipe left and this indicator gets added. I think this is the first time I'm seeing this pattern. So very interesting to see that. Oh, here's the notification, right? When we think about design, a lot of people forget about notifications. So if you're designing an app, do not forget about the notification experience. Designers sometimes make the mistake of thinking people are already in my app. No, most people, most of the time, are not in your app. Getting them in your app is just as important, because unless you get them in, I'm going to give an Android joke here. I'm not going to have storage and I just remove it. The reason I call it an Android joke is because Apple users, we pay for iCloud. Just kidding, guys, just kidding. But do think about your notification experience, right? With live activity, even more important, you can actually make it actionable, show visuals and stuff. But this is just an example about copy, right? It's not just saying, oh, add a note. It's saying time to write, building a habit. It's giving you a suggestion about what to write, so you don't have to think too much. Again, you guys might be saying this is so basic, but just thought I'll make a point. Any app that you're designing, you want to write a case study later, dedicate some time to the notification experience. You might have notifications for first time setup, which is, hey, complete setting up your profile. That's an important one because sometimes you can't. Anyways, returning users, think about how will you get them to return. I know Swiggy does jokes. Swiggy and Zomato, they do jokes in the notes. Right? I obviously have disabled them from the very beginning. But yeah. Okay, guys, having fun. Should we keep going? I can go slower, but I'm thinking this is really nice. So I'm gonna take my time. This might be a slightly longer stream, but this is for the designers for sure. I like this mode. Now, talking about chat in the disc when we were doing the watch party in the Discord, when we were doing the chat, it was people were like, "Oh, my battery," and "Oh, stupid feature, whatever." A lot of people didn't really get this. I think this is quite cool for the main reason that my phone, most of the times, I'm either not using it or using it. Right? Uh, Stay with me, okay? There are two modes. I'm either actively using my phone, more than two, but actively using my phone, or looking at my screen to see notifications, look at the time, look at the weather. But this is a good one because a lot of times when my phone is for charge, it's not treated as a separate mode, right? So this is a very cool feature, pretty cool. Not maybe not game changing or something, but very nice to see the details nevertheless. So customization and widgets, right? I can tell you this most of the times when I'm just not unlocking my phone, I just want to see this, right? Even the widgets for me, I've got the weather widget and I've got my calendar widget. My calendar widget shows me what the next meeting is, or in the evening I have a meeting, something like that. My weather widget shows me what is it going to rain and whatever. So that's an example here. You can customize that with widgets. Cool. I think apps can also do this. I don't know where exactly this is coming from. I don't remember. But cool to see that. There's some very nice motion as well in a lot of these. Pay attention to the motion. Of course, I took screenshots, so we can't really review the motion design today. But very nice to see this. A question for you guys. What the fuck is the stand though? Who makes the stand? Do any of you here have a stand like this? Because Apple definitely does not make this, right? If I'm not wrong. This is a magnetic stand, it looks like. But do any of you have this? Let me know. Because if not, another device I gotta buy. Who makes the stand? Because I know it's wirelessly charging through the magnetic thing in the back. Maybe I can place my AirPods here as well for wireless charging. But yeah, I don't know who makes this, and I'm not even sure if it's Apple, because yeah, I hope Apple announces it. Let's see. Cool, nice to see this. Siri, I feel like Siri also needs a big update. Siri needs to become Samantha from her. I'm not sure if there were too many Siri updates other than just Hey Siri. But okay, cool. Good to see this. Let's keep going. This is dope. This was really cool. Love this effect. Nice to see that. Dark mode. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. I don't know if I'm going to get used to this, just saying Siri. But the only thing I use Siri for right now is, hey Siri, set a timer. No, no. Set a timer for this thing, or actually, that's the only thing I use, set a timer. Siri, not really in the habit. Here we go. A quick bento pattern. Bento, these are the features. Very cool to see. We're going to move on to the next one here, iPad OS. How many of you guys use iPads? Approve says, I have the Apple Duo charger for watch and phone, but phone's position is vertical. Apple Duo charger. I don't know what that is. Third party companies. Okay, cool. Yeah, I would actually prefer this. I would prefer buying a Apple charger for 5,000 bucks. 5,000? Yeah, 5,000. Okay. Is the word Siri accessible? Can everybody say it right? Very interestingly, whenever it's to do with Siri, I don't say hey Siri, I say hey Siri, right? Every once in a while, I find myself going into accent mode. Hey Siri. But yeah, iPad, I was really excited about the PDF shit. I use my iPad a lot. I use it for notes. Um, I've got the Apple Pencil. Pretty much for the most part, have stopped taking physical notes. It's been about maybe 2 years or so. Apple Duo. Oh, I didn't know this exists. Nice. Cool to see. This I thought was really cool. I don't think I've ever opened the health app on my iPad, but the reason I thought this was cool is again, given the unique position in time that we are, right? If this, apps like this have always existed, but the main for something like this to be useful, the data needs to be real. Nobody wants to open this and see blank data, right? And for the most part, in the past, it's been blank data. But for a lot of people now, this is getting more and more useful. Very interesting to see. What is interesting to see is this is pretty much a health dashboard. You can probably imagine a couple variations of this ahead, a couple versions ahead. It's probably going to become a dashboard for your health that you can just come to. Uh, but even crazier, right? In fact, I think there's a good chance with journal with the. Okay, anyways, let's keep going. I'll get to it when I get there. This, bro, never seen this app before, but looks beautiful. I just thought it was really nice. What exactly is it measuring? Energy, caffeine cutoff, avoid blue light, melatonin window. Yeah, the reason I screenshotted this, I was like, bro, this is a very cool app. Never seen this before. Rise. In fact, this looks way better than the Apple default headset app. Okay, let's keep going. Presence. Earlier in this video, we talked about the idea of presence, which is ways that you can use technology to. Anyways, I'm not going to define it, but this is a great example of presence, which is to have a real time editing like this. Like, wow, bro. Wow, like this is insane. Like this to me really represents the Figmafication of software. Now, Figma obviously probably not the first to do it, but the first to popularize it, right? Live editing. Um, Figma literally was one of the first tools ever to have live editing together. Of course, we've had Google Docs, but when Figma came out, it was even crazier because it's multimodal. So to see that built right into the Notes app, where I can just send this kind of request and edit together, great Figmafication of software. I'm all for it. Add images, write together. Again, another example of presence. This is working together. Group study कर रहे हैं in FaceTime. I don't know what this is though. Like, is this sharing my screen as well as FaceTime so I can actually group study together? Is that what it is? Because this is pretty cool. I did not know it was this seamless. So very nice to see that. This is the Apple Freeform app. Again, Figmafication. This pattern of showing who is on your file right now, of course, started with Google Docs. Google Docs did that. Google Docs, Sheets, they did that for documents, right? Because prior to that, you would have to use Excel or something like that, take the file, email the file. Google Docs, they were the first to do live collaboration. Figma, of course, popularized it for designers. Good to see that built in now. So, this is the freeform app. It's kind of like Figma's equivalent of, no, no, Apple's equivalent of FigJam. That's what this is like. But I've never used this app. I really should use this app because, yeah, I mean, FigJam is dope. Notes app is dope. Like, this seems like just the combination of two. I've not used this though. I should definitely try it out. Side note, Apple, I love seeing the content in Apple keynotes because it's always so beautifully designed. Another nice Figmafication pattern, following someone. I think this Figma, yes, Figma was the first person to do this. You can follow somebody, you can see what they're designing, where they are on the file. Now, this to me is another example of presence, which is in the real world. Visually, we can see how close somebody is, how far somebody is, where they are on the space you see around you. Digital equivalent of that. Nice to see this built into the OS, which is a big deal. Although Figma has had it, it's a big deal to have this built right into the OS. Not into the OS, but in a system app. Yeah, nice to see this. All right, here's our bento for iPad OS. Good to see that a lot of iOS features, things like live activities which came to the phone, are now finally in iPad too. Love seeing that. Inline PDF, I didn't really take a screenshot of this, but going to be so useful for me. Because right now, what I do is I use the Books app where I have textbooks and all that stuff there, right? I write on top of it, but it's saved in the Books app. And so if I need to take notes and I need to take a separate Apple note, the two cannot be linked. If I took that PDF and added it inside the Notes app, um, not a great experience. I was just happy to see this. Inline PDF, small feature, but really nice. Okay, let's keep going. Sonoma, fine. Okay, don't really care too much. This was dope. This was dope. Um, right now, I am as a little circle on your screen right now. So is this guy. But what's different is you see this guy's head is popping out of the circle. There's a foreground and background separation. And the way Apple is able to do that is via on device processing, from what I remember. And so, right from your toolbar, from here, you can change this to circle mode, this overlay mode, which kind of would be me in front of this, giving a keynote type of thing with the slides behind me. Really nice to see this. Now, it might seem like, bro, like what's so new in this? Right? It's been around. We've seen some variations, versions of this. But what's new in this is that it's integrated into the OS, right? That's a big deal. So if I don't have to download like or one of these Zoom alternatives, of course I could do this with OBS, but who the fuck wants to manage OBS every single time? Nice to see this. Nice to see this. Nice to see this kind of separation happening. Even without the headset, by the way, quick note here. This is pretty much them adding UI on top of my real life, right? It's saying this is my house, this is my environment that I'm in, adding the UI on top of it, separating it out, whatever. Small note. Okay, cool. Good to see this, although I'm like, fine. The reason I actually did like this, though, even though it was just a small feature for most people, is literally the cohorts, right? The cohorts are also an example. This is the 10K designers cohorts we're talking about, by the way, which there are 3 more days for applications. June 10th is when we stop applications. So if you've not submitted an application and you want to join our cohort to become a UI UX designer, or if you're already a designer, to go like this, definitely fill out the application. Submit your application. We will get back to you. We start later this month, June 24th, but the cutoff date for applications is in 3 days. And you bet your ass I'm going to be using this. If we get it by then, I'm going to be using this. And the reason it's exciting to me is this directly elevates the cohort experience, the presentation experience. I, of course, could have done this with third party tools, but to have this built in just means I'm going to use it more. Another note here for those of you who have used green screen, you might be wondering what's the big deal? Look at the edges here, guys. Look at the edges. To be able to do this without a green screen and have clean edge detection is not easy. There's a lot of processing that makes this possible, right? Zoom has this green screen mode, like you can do it without a screen, but you've seen what it looks like. Right? It looks like I'm a bit of a ghost. Like my edges are kind of blurry. It's trying its best, but to be able to do this, my guess is Apple has used some of their basically on-device ML capabilities. But yeah, cool to see that. Very cool to see that. In fact, I can tell you this also. When we edit our videos, sometimes we want to do the effect where the text comes behind me. And my video editors, Yash, Sumanyu, Shaf, and all these guys, it's always a thing like, oh, bro, we have to make a green screen, editing, and all that. But to see that happen in real time, amazing, insane. It's all about presence, guys. I feel like the theme of this WWDC was presence in some ways. This really cool feature. Now, I don't exactly remember if this is just for, um is it just for FaceTime or can other apps do this as well? But I thought this was pretty cool. I can totally imagine a scenario where, let's say, some of you here might be remote working, right? So maybe you have an office, but maybe most of your team they work remotely. You could very well have, this set up in a room where you just walk in and you can just kind of start talking. Now, of course, um, huge companies they already have some version of this, right? So Cisco, for example, and a lot of companies they make these round devices. I don't know if you've seen them. They make these devices that sit inside conference rooms and present something. And you've probably seen it in shows and stuff, but nobody really wants to buy a dedicated device for this. So being able to do this with just your phone and any TV is actually quite a big improvement over the current status quo. I don't know what this mount is. It also seems like a similar magnetic mount, but nice to see that it follows people around. And it's also got the interactions. But anyways, guys, I am gonna go a little faster. Okay. Again, another example of presence, watching stuff together, right? That's becoming way more common in a lot of apps. Good trend to watch out for. Okay, so there is an API, which means a lot of companies can do this. Nice to see. Chalo, let's keep going. Audio and home. Emotions, beautiful motion design on this, if you guys remember. Loved seeing that. Really nice. Again, the example of this is there have been apps that can do this before. It's still a big deal to have it at the system level. But secondly, it's about building the habit. So I would be curious to see if they're able to do that. State of mind. Small feature, but I can imagine this would be useful. A quick self diagnosis to help you understand. I'm going to skip over it though. WatchOS, I literally did not take any screenshots. WatchOS. I bought a watch, but then I stopped using it literally a few weeks because I did not want to charge another device. So just literally gave it to my sister. I think that's the one device that I don't have in my ecosystem. I of course also don't have the Mac Pro and stuff, but this not a fan. One more thing. One more thing. Folks, let's take a really quick break, okay? You want to take a 2 minute break? I want to see some chats. And I'm going to just switch on this light. We're about an hour into the stream, but now we're going to get to the exciting parts. There's a lot to talk about, and we're going to do it right now. You have the AirPods Max? No, I don't have the AirPods Max. I just have the regular AirPods. But very interestingly, I have two pairs because I lost my first pair and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to buy another. And then I found the old one inside my couch. So now I have two AirPods, which is cool because now I never have to wait for my AirPods to charge. Unexpected side effect, expensive side effect, but I'm going to just take the positives off that. What's up? What's up, folks? Folks who've just joined recently, we're now going to jump into spatial design. We're going to be talking about the headset now. I'm not going to do too many questions because we still have a lot to get through. But let's keep going. One more thing. Nice to see that it's not plastic. Nice to see the metal. Very reminiscent of the existing devices, right? The nice metal here. The speaker grill, very similar. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about hardware. I'm going to talk mostly about software today when it comes to this. So, I don't know if you guys remember this, but before the headset was announced, the rumored name was Reality Pro. And the OS rumored name was XROS. Now, XROS, I'm glad, I feel Vision OS is probably better, right? XR, again, is an acronym. You want to avoid acronyms, right? It makes it feel more complicated to normal people. Reality Pro, though, I really preferred the name Reality Pro. Vision Pro is great, but Reality Pro just has a nice vibe to it, right? Here we go. Beautiful to see this. I'm going to talk about some highlights. A quick reminder here, I'm going to say this again. We're going to have a detailed video on this. This live stream, this is just first impressions that I'm sharing. We're working on not a better, but a longer video where we're going to be talking about this in more detail. But today, let's just go over it, right? Some initial thoughts. Nice to see this. Nice to see right. The last time we've seen something like this is in the Watch, right? The Watch OS, all apps, the circular. Nice to see that similar pattern being reused here. And let's start here. Apple did not call this a headset because a headset is something people are neither did they use the word VR headset, VR, AI. They did not use these terms. They called it a spatial computer. They called it spatial computing, right? VR companies typically, the general idea is the VR, the world that you enter when you go into VR, has typically been called the metaverse. Now, Web3 kind of used the term metaverse for something similar, right? It's a totally different world or whatever. But very nice to see that Apple is not using those terminologies because typically it comes with baggage, right? Calling this a VR device comes with baggage because now you're going to be compared to all other VR devices. Now, of course, that's still going to happen, but from Apple side, it's a positioning. So, nice little thing to notice there. I thought it was really cool, um, or rather interesting, that this was all 2D UI, right? You can imagine that Apple might have gone to the 3D UI, but I'm glad that it's still a 2D UI in a 3D space. Um, Number one, for familiarity, but number two, what this thing should make you guys realize is um, UI design isn't going away anytime soon. Surfaces and interfaces. Um, okay, I'm going to talk about it in a later video. I don't want to get into that. This was cool to see. I do have an Oculus Pro, and I've got those trigger controllers. Not the Oculus Pro. What's it called? Vive. No, not a Vive. That's HTC. Anyways, I've got one of those Oculus devices. I literally don't use it at all. I think it's a pain. But this was really cool to see. It's really painful using one of those Oculus devices and you're in this trigger mode. Some websites do support, some apps do support the hand thing, but then you see these 2D looking, dorky looking hands that don't move. Like, you see them like this in your field of view. I'm talking about normal VR devices. And you see this line. I don't know if how many of you have used VR, the current VR devices, but you see this line going from your hand. And so when you're pointing, you see these cartoon hands with the line pointing like this. The first time I saw that, I thought it was pretty cool. But then you quickly realize the problems with it, which is you have to literally do the shooting action to even type something, right? So literally you're pointing at a keyboard like this and you're doing this to type in a normal VR device. Not great. This I thought was really cool. Um, Something that Apple mentioned in the keynote is eras of computing, right? I think what they said was desktops and tablets, the input to desktops and tablets was enabled by the mouse and keyboard. The mouse and keyboard made it possible to do a lot more with your computer, prior to which it was just keyboard, prior to which it was punch cards and shit like that. When we went from desktop computing to mobile computing, the input device was now your fingers, but it was enabled by multi touch. Now, I know a lot of us, we don't think about multi touch as something Apple invented, and we feel like all touchscreen, obviously, there should be multi touch. But I can tell you this, I've had shitty Androids in the past, and they were not multi touch. You could not even do, you could do this, for example, the expand zoom in motion. But even that, it was not as smooth, right? It would not, you could not, let's just say you could not interact with it nicely. So multi-touch was actually a big deal. Outside of touch screens did exist, but touch screens is something Apple came up with. So one thing that they noticed here is, so they said desktop computing, uh, mobile computing with multi-touch, and then spatial computing, which is eyes and fingers. Do you guys remember this from the keynote? So fingers, of course, you can do, scrolling motion, whatever, light interactions. The last thing you want to be doing with a VR headset is this, right? Which every once in a while with had to kind of do that with the Oculus. But nice to see this. Outside of this, the eyes thing. Let's talk about that. This pretty much standard stuff. I'm not going to talk too much. Okay, I don't know if I have a screenshot of that. Something that is easy to miss that they did not talk too much about, they talked a little bit, is that your eyes can be used as the input device. I think it comes later actually, so I'll talk about that in a bit. But what that means is currently the UI that you're looking at, right? Maybe you're watching this stream on your phone or your computer. Your computer does not know whether you're looking right now at the subscribe button, which you should really hit, um, or where your eyes are moving around. This is the first device to actually do that, right? And Apple talked about the eye sensors and stuff, which I think comes later. But cool to see that. I'm going to talk about what the implications of that are, because really, if you think about it, the eyes are really a part of the brain. Now, a weird thing to say, Just stay with me here. The eyes, the optic nerve is connected straight to the brain. The eyes, in some ways, are one of the primary input devices to your brain, right? The eyes, I would say, in some ways, is pretty much an extension of your brain. So having that, I feel like it is. Uh, I don't have good formed thoughts right now, but we'll get to that in a bit. UIs, nice to see this. Nice to see some work context. Now, of course, we've seen this before. We've seen this with Meta's devices. We've seen that in Oculus. A lot of this is standard. What I loved though was the fucking shadows, bro. The shadows, all these UIs, and I think there's some screenshots later. They cast a shadow on the floor. You can see this line here. Can't really see it here, but very cool to see that. Good skeuomorphism. Again, one of those things which is kind of obvious, but to actually do it, not a trivial task. So most devices today, you don't really see the UI cast shadows, right? Cool to see that in real time. The idea of spatial computing. Now, I will be making a longer video on spatial computing. I have also aggregated a bunch of resources around spatial computing that I'm going to be sharing with you. We, of course, I want you guys to just realize this. Spatial computing, although the term is now going to gain popularity, it has existed, right? So, for example, when you think about something like Google Docs versus Figma, Google Docs is a linear kind of flow. Figma, it's 2D, right? You can move around in a 2D space. Another example of this would be something like gather.town, right? I'm sure some of you have seen this. Gather.town enables you to create these little Pokemon looking maps and for remote work. So you have your office map, people are walking around. When you come close to each other, presence, it starts an audio channel with you guys. As multiple people come together, the volume increases. I don't know if you've noticed this, right? You have imagine a Pokemon map with all your coworkers, and when you walk up to each other, you can automatically start hearing each other. Somebody who's somewhere else in the map cannot hear you guys, but when they come close, it's like walking into a conversation. All these are presence ideas, but it's also spatial computing. It has existed in some forms, but now clear signal that is going to go even crazier. The reason I took a screenshot of this is another kind of meta, not the company. Meta version of this is spatial computing in some ways, right? For them to lay this to talk about spatial computing and lay out these spaces. I thought this was a really cool set design. I think Apple has done this before in some of the prior keynotes, and they've done multi-floor setups as well. Like they've shown a house here and stuff. Cool to see that. Some beautiful skeuomorphism here. Very nice to see this. I know some people were like, yo, glass morphism is back. But let me just tell you this, my point of view, glass morphism is not a real thing. Glass is a material. So is this. It looks like glass, so a bit skeuomorphic there. But this does not mean glass morphism is back. Glass morphism is not a real thing. But cool to see this. I love to see this material though. Opaque, so your background doesn't come through. It's got that same transparent kind of view that you do see in a lot of Apple apps. What I really liked, the reason I took a screenshot of this, with these lighting effects, right? So you can see the background here, but these lighting effects along with the shadows, like that's dope. Dope to see that. This as well. Nice. This is what I was talking about, the shadows. Now, this is a great example of designers versus the rest of the world. If you ever told a non-designer with excitement, bro, check out this cool little detail, shadows. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Shadows is the most normal thing. There's 100 shadows around me if I look around. But to have this real time like this here, I'm pretty sure it's going to really add to the experience. So all those small things, I'm still glad they mentioned it. Talking about spatial computing, the concept here is these UIs or UI media, which is images, videos, games. It's spatial computing because they're in your space, right? A sentence Apple said, I think Tim Cook said this. This is the first Apple device that you don't look at, you look through. Very interesting. Some UI details here. Ooh, look at that shadow, bro. Love to see that shadow. This nice throwback to skeuomorphism. Text field text fields on iOS at some point of time looked like this. When they became more, let's just say, flat, or even right now, they kind of became more flattened. Back to this dimensionality. Cool to see that. Amazing. This is so beautiful. Love seeing this. I wonder what this dot indicator is. Not so sure about that. Did we miss something? It's here too. No, I don't think so. Okay. Another Oculus story. I downloaded this app on Oculus. It's called Trip, TRIPP, right? And what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to simulate, you know what I mean, psychedelic trips. Not great, not great. I saw a tweet. Somebody was like, the killer app for this would be a LSD trip. Maybe. Loved this transparency effect. I think this is a really good. There's a dedicated physical thing on it, which is the, what do you call it? The digital crown is going to be used for how much you want to be tuned in or tuned out, right? So good to see that there is a physical button on the device for immersion, right? Um, the way I'm thinking about it is physical devices have, or rather, physical buttons. You have to use them for something important, right? You can increase the volume and decrease the volume on your phone. Good to see a similar concept, but for increasing and decreasing your immersion. Very cool to see that. Yeah, there you go. When I first saw the eyes thing, I was like, dude, how the hell are they doing that? Right? Because clearly the device is not transparent. Clearly these are not your real eyes. Clearly there's no way in that device there's a camera which from here is looking at your eyes and live streaming it on the front. So nice to see that that is what it looks like. The device looks transparent. I loved the reason they've done it as well. I'm not going to repeat it. They talked about it in the stream. But the idea in general is that it feels weird wearing a VR device with your friends. I'm sure those of you here who have tried VR, very common experience, okay? You want to try it, you have some friends over, three, four of you guys, but there's only one headset. What are you going to do? One of you is going to wear it, the other four have to watch you do it. And what do they do? What do your friends do? Can you hear me, bro? They make fun of you, bro. They make fun of you because they know you can't see. And so VR is one of those things you want to show your friends when they've come to your place. But then you know that the person who's wearing it, everybody else is going to be looking at that guy and being like, oh, chutia. They're going to be looking at that guy, making fun of him. But they're going to be looking at him so that he doesn't trip into a table or run into the wall or, hit a TV or something like that. So without this, without this feature, The headset literally would not work. It would not be good, right? This is one of those things where um, pure design decision. Yeah, and of course, Meta did not do something like this. I'm assuming it was very expensive for them to pull something like this, but then from a design perspective, absolutely needed, bro. Absolutely needed. What you see here is the eye tracking. When I look at the icon responds because it knows I am looking at it. That's a big deal. That doesn't exist. So to have my UI be alive in the sense that it knows I am looking at it and it's responding through, motion. Beautiful. Can't wait to see this in real life. I'm sure it's going to look nothing like this. It's going to look even crazier. Nice. This as well. What I loved about this, right? I'm sure some of you guys saw this tweet where people are like, or multiple tweets around this, where there was this question which is, why did, why are there no pictures of Tim Cook wearing the device? Why did they not show any of these real people wearing? Why did they only show models? And I know people are saying that's a negative thing or whatever, but it's kind of obvious, no? Like, bro, literally look at this frame. Everything about this says aspirational, luxury, hot people, right? The last thing I want to see is a 70-year-old guy wearing a device. That's not cool, bro. Really, why do you think models exist? Why do you think when you go and see an advertisement somewhere for a luxury brand, modeling is not just anybody wears it, right? Models are specifically chosen to depict a particular lifestyle. So not just models, right? Models, what she's wearing, bro. Pretty sure this is designer, like fucking expensive. Where she is, right? Beautiful Scandinavian minimalism. They're not trying to sell this old guy wearing a headset. That's uncool. And but what they are trying to show you is this aspirational luxury vibe. So pretty obvious that they did that. Because literally every other time that they actually did it, right? For example, you guys have probably seen the Google Glass image of that. I think it was Robert Scoble in the shower wearing like doing this. Like literally, I think that image caused Google Glass to fail. Or you've seen that image where Zuckerberg is walking down the stage and everybody in the crowd is wearing this headset, right? Why? Because they said, "Oh, there's a headset under your chair." But all that, perception. Think about perception. When the rest of the world sees that, what are they going to feel? They're going to feel like Zuckerberg is this dictator walking through this crowd of people wearing this headset who don't know what's going out around them. They look vulnerable because they can't see that environment, right? Similarly, when you see Zuckerberg wearing the headset, I'll tell you this. Why do you guys think why do you guys think Zuckerberg has suddenly become such a. Uh, why is Zuckerberg so Chad? Have you ever thought about this? Why is Zuckerberg, why has he become Chad? If you guys remember from the social network, he was the guy wearing flip flops. The Winklevi twins were the ones who were working out. They were the ones with the strong work ethic, waking up in the morning and going, fucking racing. Why is Zuckerberg becoming Chad? You've seen him do the MMA thing, like he's working out. You've seen him doing the the water thing, the foil, where surfing. It's similar to surfing, holding the American flag. See him working out, doing these marathons and stuff. I suspect the reason for that is because if you see the social network wala Zuckerberg persona wearing a headset or talking about meta and all this, what's the vibe you're gonna feel? Who the fuck is this loser who doesn't live in the real world wearing this headset, isolating himself? I feel the reason Zuckerberg has become so Chad is to give that idea that no, you don't need to be this basement shut in nerd to wear a headset. And I think that's the reason behind the chadification of Mark Zuckerberg. But do you guys agree? Let's get back into this. There's no reason he had to go that hard, bro. Zuckerberg is absolute Chad right now. But nobody wants to see Zuckerberg with a headset. I would rather not. But cool to see this. Very obvious why Apple did this. Detail, bro. Let me tell you guys this, right? Small story. Back when I started designing, this was fucking 10 years ago. It was iOS 5. I think iOS 5 or iOS 6 is when I started designing. We're at 16 now. We would literally do this, bro. Every single app I'm thinking about it with slight hesitation, but also like a lot of nostalgia. Because every single app I would design, this was like normal. To do this was normal. Today, a search field, if you want to create the UI for search, bro, you put a rectangle, put a border radius, put icon, put text. That's a search field. Think about how easy it is to create a search field in Figma. Back then, firstly, we didn't have Figma. I was in Photoshop. Creating a search field was creating the rectangle, applying the rounded edges, clicking on, I forgot the exact UI now, but right clicking effects or whatever, going in, adding the in inner shadow, tweaking the values. Then there's not just a shadow, but there's also this white line at the bottom that you see, right? Why does that exist? It's because we would have to think about stuff like that, right? Literally, imagine this. I'm sitting in front of my computer. This is 2013. I'm designing an app and I have a fucking flash. I have my table lamp next to me and I'm looking at the light, bro. I'm literally begging the lamp here and I'm looking at the light and I'm like, oh, so if a light source is on top, this would be a shadow, but this would be a glow, right? Because the light is on top. And so we would have to think about shit like this. If you're applying a gradient, let's say a gradient here, if the light is on top, it means the lighter color of the gradient needs to be on top and the darker color needs to be at the bottom. Because if you flip this, it's going to look unrealistic. So, in some ways, I'm glad that's coming back, bro. I think flat design just makes UI too easy. Just kidding, just kidding. Yeah, nice. Nice, bro. Good to see this. Dope. Shadow here. Another common Twitter thing that I saw, people are like, oh, cookie banners. Unrealistic. Where are the cookie banners? Where are the ads? Guys, why the fuck would they show you that? Cookie banners are literally the most annoying thing on the internet. And Apple right now doesn't want you to get it turned off. Why the fuck would they show you cookie banners? But that's true. There are going to be a cookie banners here. There is going to be something here which says download our free guide, enter your email ID, right? Sign up for this. There's going to be Google ads here telling you to, I don't know, fucking Amazon or some shit. But nice to see these beautiful sites. This is so cool, bro. This, so alien looking, right? Like it's just like this little orb. I would love to see this in real life. Can you just imagine how stimulating it's going to be looking at this? There's this very common joke that if you went back like a couple centuries and you gave somebody like I don't know, a fucking lemonade or a kurkure or something, they would die because of the sensory overload. Because the amount of flavor in a kurkure is the sum of all flavor that they would have in a year. Like, of course, it's a joke, but this to me is the visual effect of that. And they don't say kurkure, by the way; they say Doritos. Or if I gave Doritos to a caveman, he would die. right? Indian version of it, kurkure or magic masala, they would die. This is the visual equivalent of that, which is this is so visually stimulating, bro. Like, what the fuck? This here, literally reflecting my room, insane. Eyesight. Apple just invented eyesight. I like that statement, by the way, which is this is the first Apple device that you don't look at, you look through. Because, yeah, why wouldn't I want my world to look like Apple? I trust Apple, and um, it's beautiful. Okay, cool. This is fine. This is just some UI. This was cool to see. A lot of people saw this and they're like, guys, Black Mirror shit. Black Mirror. Guys, you know what's Black Mirror? There's nothing Black Mirror about this. Black Mirror is your lack of imagination. Kidding, kidding. There's nothing Black Mirror about this. This is literally human experience, right? The biggest problem with headsets is that you isolate from the rest of the world. Your friends make fun of you because they know you can't see them, right? What do you think your friends around you are doing when you put your headset on? They're doing this, bro. They're making fun of you while making sure you don't fucking trip and fall, right? Because so that's a vulnerable position. So this top feature, bro, absolutely needed. People are like, this is Black Mirror as well. I don't know. I feel like, nah, it's not Black Mirror. Black Mirror would be, we're on what? iOS 17, WatchOS 10, if I'm not wrong. I think we would need to go to at least Vision OS 4 or 5. But yeah, I can understand why it's a bit creepy, bro. In this picture, the eyes are slightly smaller as well. I think that's what makes this look weird. But yeah, interestingly, these eyes are being generated. These are not your real eyes, it's a generated version of your eyes. Now, any other company would have said generative AI, generative AI. They would have said, we're using generative AI to create a realistic model of your eyes. Apple just said, we don't want you to isolate from the rest of the world. I love the picture AI, generative AI meme. It's so good. Very spatial of them to do this. Office, right? I think this was one of the cool screenshots here. Of course, all this is great. Um, you know, curved shadow. Good to see that, bro. Realistic. Shadows cast also by objects. So right now you notice this 3D file here is casting a circular shadow versus here it's casting a shadow of the shape of the device. So these are happening in real time. Good to see that. It just it seems obvious, but without this it would not feel real. And if it doesn't feel real, it means you don't feel immersed, which then experience. This was cool, bro. Like this to me is the equivalent of cubicle के बीच में से हाथ डाल के you're like take this. But this is nice to see, bro, because bro, my friends do this. Imagine what they do in an office, right? Imagine I'm sitting there with my Meta Oculus or whatever on, and my boss is like, "Bhai, look at this guy," and all my colleagues are like, "Bhai, look at this guy." What's this? I know my colleagues know I'm looking at them. They cannot make fun of me. Nice to see this. This was a question a lot of people as I was watching this, and as you guys were watching this, you were probably thinking, "How am I going to type? How exactly it work?" So good to see the deep Apple ecosystem integration, right? When we talk about Apple ecosystem, we usually think about things like phone and desktop, right? Phone and laptop, or phone, laptop, AirPods, but it extends all the way to even things like peripherals. So your Magic Mouse, your keyboard, you know good to see that. Video editors be like, every video editor needs this, bro. A quick note here on the stylistic decisions, right? Of course, you can say that it's Apple, so that's why the locations look so good, right? Um, this office right here, as well as this house. But it's because you want to create that luxury vibe, also because it's Apple. But very interestingly, one of the things that they said, let's say we're in India, bro, right? Let's say we're in India. Now, of course, our houses in India don't really have the Scandinavian vibe. Our houses in India don't really have these cool windows and these fucking semicircular windows. Wow. Like, I'm just geeking out on architecture and interior design here. But yeah, we know our houses are not going to have this. We know our houses are going to have grills and shit. Um, but one of the things they mentioned in the keynote, I don't know if you caught this, was when they were talking about the immersion. They were like, whether it's for watching media where you want to immerse yourself in the content or get away from clutter, right? So while this is the showcase thing, what it's more likely, let's say, you know, Vision OS 5, by the time the device gets cheaper, more likely you're going to be wearing this because your room sucks, bro, or you're not happy with your surroundings or whatever, which is a good thing, by the way. It's a good thing because it's easy to forget this, but your environment, right, the environment that we operate in, does have a big effect on us. Which is, if everything is cluttered, you feel that clutter, right? Even if you can't sometimes say it. Why do people say clean your desk and all that shit? Because a clean desk is a clean mind. Like, that's not just a cliche boomer thing. You do feel cleaner, right? So to be able to permanently do that with in a space that's not good, that's really nice. But of course, you show that, it's going to get dystopian, right? If I show that, it's going to look like Ready Player One. The guy is sitting in this futuristic chawl or whatever, wearing this and everything around his kachra. That would look obviously super dystopian. Cool to see this, although it's 2D, so it doesn't look like anything much. But the note here that they made was this is 3D. So, you know, you guys see this right here? Portals. I feel like this is portals pretty much, right? Like, this is, if this is 3D, this is pretty much going to feel like a portal that you're looking through. And whatever they said, yeah, in fact, they said it multiple times also that no, this is not exactly going to look like that because it's hard to recreate this in 2D. But I really wonder what this is going to look like. But this is like heavy portal shit, bro. Like, it's literally, guys, I'm not even kidding. It's literally a portal into another space or another time. We live in the future, guys. I don't know if you've noticed this, but we live in the future. Very interesting decision, by the way, to show something like this because those of you who have Oculus, you guys know this. You would never do something like this with your Oculus. You would never do that, bro. I feel scared even walking with my Oculus because I know if I stub my pinky finger or hit something and something falls and pani gir gaya or something like that, I would never do something like this, right? I would not walk in my house wearing this. But good to see that Apple's showing this because it just, even if you don't register it, they are setting that precedent. Like, hey, you don't need to be like so scared of you're going to bump into things, right? This is something I would never do with any other headset. Walk to the kitchen, bro. I would not even get up and take 2 steps because I'm scared of what I'm going to bump into. Disney 100. 100 years of Disney. Now, I mean, I'm not going to talk so much about this, but just goes to show that we don't know, right? The level of um, customization that is possible. It's not just 2D anymore, right? And in some ways, I am so fucking glad that generative generative images exist. Like, I'm so glad we have Mid Journey, Stable Diffusion, and in general, text to image AI models. Because, bro, if you're designing this, ठीक है, the UI designer can do this, right? To some extent, the UI designer will probably have to do this. Working with the assets, they're like, okay, they work with the 3D designer. But just think about this, right? Something like even this background. Let's say you are realistically designing this. How would you create this background, bro? Like, how would you create this? Um, like, really, like you're not gonna create this, add a gradient, add cloud effects, add the dot speckled, right? Neither are you going to go and learn 3D, just to be able to do backgrounds or something like this. But very likely that the workflow for spatial designers, right? Spatial UX designers, spatial product designers like you and me in the future, very likely that we're just going to use AI tools to do all the side stuff. So when you see this, it might seem really complicated. Like, fuck, bhai, like I'm going to have to design all this shit, like this game UI and stuff. ठीक है, this maybe you still have to design, like these frames. But all this other stuff, you will be able to just text prompt, right? So it might seem like designing is going to be more difficult for this. But I have a feeling it's going to be less difficult than it is right now. Because by the time this gets here, which is next year, and by the time we start designing for it, which will be after it comes out, and by the time it becomes a thing you can get a job for, or by the time that startups go all in, it's going to be another few years, right? Because I can tell you this, even though this is coming out 2024, there's going to be very few or almost zero Indian startups like Zomato and all these guys, the current winners of the game. They're not going to be doing this, right? Why? Because most of the users are on Android, bro, right? Even the ones who are on iOS, this is like fraction. So mainstream usage for, let's say, Indian users, or in India, we're not going to see it. We're also probably not going to see in the US very soon unless the devices catches up, right? It's the equivalent. You can think about this. It's like trying to make an app for your phone, but only 1% of the world's population has a phone. So obviously the number of people who use your app are even less than that, right? That's the device penetration problem. But by the time that you and I, as spatial product designers, start making this, my guess is it's not like this. For example, we are not going to have to make a 3D model of the fucking Mandalorian ship, and we'll pretty much be able to do a text to 3D model prompt, take this, import it into Figma, and done. Right? We're not going to have to actually design the buttons and shit. A lot of this stuff will just be generated for us. If you want your mind blown even a little further, consider the fact that the idea that the device knows what you're looking at also means it can generate that stuff right here. So even crazier, as you and I as spatial product designers might not even design this whole thing. We might not even design this whole thing. Why? Because the device, we might just say, if somebody looks at this, render this. So when I actually see it is when it gets rendered. If I really, really focus on this dashboard here, the buttons will appear. It'll get more detailed when I look into it. If I go really like this, the texture will appear, but the texture will probably not will not be there from the beginning. So a lot of this stuff is probably real-time UIs that are created. Maybe not UIs, but real-time environments that are created. Right? I'll talk about that in a bit. I have a screenshot to show you guys that. But this level of immersion, right? Insane. I love to see this, bro. This is so cool. I'm not really a sports guy, so I saw this and I was like, "ठीक है." But this was really dope. Like, this was probably like they just skipped over this, but bro, this is so fucking cool. Like, insane. A quick note here, right? This made me realize, and this is very easy to miss if you're not paying attention. When you have these windows in augmented reality, right? The Photos app, Message app right here, do they move if you move, or can you leave them there? We don't know that yet. Think about that, guys. If I am sitting here right now on my table, I can say iMessage table pe dal do, right? So instead of the screen being here, I can put it flat, maybe like this, or maybe like this. I can say iMessage, put it on my table. But then if I walk away, I can probably pin iMessage to my table, and then I can say on this wall, put my Notion, and I'll open up my, my to-do list, or let's say project management or something, and I say pin it there. So very likely that current headsets, the windows don't stay there; they follow you around, right? And based on your head tracking and whatever location, this thing, it moves around. But spatial computing, the reason spatial computing is not the same as VR is because you can probably pin stuff, which means in my room, in the same way that I would put up posters or I would put up sticky notes on this corner, posters on this corner, मेरी notebook वहाँ पे पड़ी है, screen यहाँ पे पड़ा है, वो यहाँ पे पड़ी है. Spatial computing might mean that you can actually put your windows in places, and only the most important ones are in front of you right now. Everything else is pinned there, and when you look at it, it probably zooms in also, right? Because it knows you're looking at it. Amazing, bro. Another on table view. When this was happening, I think what they said was, imagine if you could bring Disney World into your world. That's what they said, which I thought was a pretty cool statement. But right after that, not this. Oh shit, I didn't get a screenshot. Right after that, Bob Iger, when he was on stage, he said, the world's, okay, I'm going to skip the accent, but the world's greatest, not the greatest, what was it? The world's best entertainment company is bringing these experiences to the world's best technology company. It was not entertainment, actually, storytelling. The world's best storytelling company brings these experiences to the world's best technology company. I didn't think of the Marvel as the world's best storytelling company, but I get it, bro. I get what they're going for. ठीक है, sound, big deal, fine, not too much to say. This might seem new, but right now, if you have an iPad or an iPhone, this is pretty much what your iPhone is doing to you right now. If you've ever I think certain glasses, when you wear them, you can see something blinking in your notch. This is pretty much what it's doing, right? It's mapping your face. And the reason Face ID does not work with photographs and things like that is because this depth map is created by the sensors here in your notch. So this is pretty much similar. But I think where they took it even further is the avatar. Now, you and I, we both know that the avatar did not look that great. You could tell the mouth was, you could tell it was a little uncanny, right? But let me tell you this. Have you guys heard of Uncanny Valley? I guess that's what it's called. Uncanny Valley? Yeah. It's basically this effect where when you see something that looks human but it's slightly off, you feel uneasy about it. Uncanny Valley is what it's called, right? And scientists say the reason for that is when it was Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, multiple Homo species, human species, right? Today, Homo sapiens, you and I, we're the only ones that survived through evolutionary processes. But scientists say the reason uncanny valley exists, the reason if you see a human face like Sophia or one of those robots, but it looks slightly off, it makes us feel uneasy. They say the reason for that is because of interactions between species that used to happen back then. And that it was really important somehow from an evolutionary perspective to not mix up human species, right? If you're Homo sapiens and you see Homo erectus, biologically you want to be able to tell the difference because there is possibly a threat, right? And there's possibly some gap. So, uncanny valley, the effect of uncanny valley is a big design problem when it comes to something like this. It's also a design problem for AI generated avatars. I'm sure you have probably at this point already seen things like you've probably seen some reels where people are using that AI avatar and saying, oh, blah, 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 blah," and you're looking at this and you're like, okay, technology is nice, but not so good, right? That's your feeling of uncanny valley, and it feels creepy. It's a design problem, and pretty sure Apple is thinking about it. This does look weird, but then keep in mind this is probably also 3D, right? This is a portal where you're looking at another person, right? This is a portal that is opening up like this in front of you. So my guess is it might look even creepier than it looks right now. This does not look too creepy, by the way. I think the video you could tell. With the screenshot, you're not really able to tell so much. But my guess is with the 3D effect, it either becomes less creepy or because it's more details, it becomes even more creepy. So definitely a big problem for Apple. And I'm curious to see how they will solve it. Okay, ठीक है. Foveated renderer, ठीक है, fine. I'm not sure what foveated means though. Let me just do a quick dictionary search. What is foveated? Foveated rendering is a rendering technique which uses eye tracker integrated virtual reality headset to reduce the rendering workload. Okay, so basically it means if you're not looking at something, it's not rendering, right? I think that from what I just read. Yeah, definitely way better than meta avatars, for sure. So it's the equivalent of, when we talk about things like do we live in a simulation or whatever, let me ask you this question, right? I'm going to go a little bit philosophical here. Keep looking straight, okay? And tell me what's behind you right now. If the environment around you is a simulation, then very likely that it's not being rendered if nobody is looking at it. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody is around to hear it, did it even happen? And what that's pointing at is that unless there is an observer, does reality exist? If there is nobody to observe it, does that even exist? And to go even deeper, right? If you think about things like the double slit experiment, you think about quantum physics. The idea is that, or Schrodinger, right? When you observe, it knows you're observing, and you can, the whole position and momentum thing. But the possible implication, right? I'm not suggesting this is for sure true. Possible implication is that the universe probably does not render if you're not looking at it. Space is fake. Have you heard that term before? Now, it might seem crazy. What the fuck do you mean? But what it means is, think about this. If the universe is a simulation, there is a computer that it's running on. It's using energy and graphic processing and all this. Why would they render outer space if nobody is going to look at outer space? More likely that they'll render it only when somebody is looking at it. So with that hypothesis, when you go out into space, space is rendered. Or when a satellite looks at and gets an image, it's not even a human observer, it's a satellite, but it's rendered, right? Now, okay, hypothetical, right? These are all hypotheses. Um, we don't know if we live in a simulation, but there is a simulation hypothesis which goes deeper into this. But good to see that there's a version of that that exists, right? Because if the universe does not render till I look at it, that pretty much makes it the same as when I look at the UI knows I'm looking at it. Which means when you look out at the universe, does the universe know you're looking at it? Most likely, yes. But anyway, guys, let's get back to our topic. Cool. AR. Cool. Nice to see this. Educational use cases, 3D models. Now, of course, this is not a new idea, but it's all about execution. So, definitely can be executed better, the core idea. I'm a bit jealous, to be honest, um, of kids these days, bro, because I felt that when I saw the Apple Notes thing, them doing padhai, because if you're going for a master's or something, it makes no sense to not have a iPad. That's like the padhai device now. Obviously you have an iPad. You're a student. Right? It kind of feels like that, and so I feel bad that I didn't have an iPad when I was a student. Because I could have really used that shit. But then remember this: there's always a dark side to things, right? Which is you have iPad babies. People think this is Black Mirror. Have you guys never heard of iPad babies? Where parents, to keep the child occupied, give it an iPad with a nice thick rubber case, which has little legs and little dinosaur ears or something. So if you're born into a world where iPad exists, this shit is normal to you. You realize that we're gonna become boomers at some point, not literally, but there'll be some point where we're gonna look at this shit and be like, "Wow, bro!" Like you know how like let's say grandparents when you try to explain them the internet they're like अरे मेरे बस की तो नहीं है ये like it's so weird the internet is so weird you think iPad babies are going to be impressed by this they're going to be bored they're going to what the fuck is this so I don't know where I was going with that but cool to see this cool nice this I think they were showing the whole stars wala thing. I'll be honest, lying down is probably the best way to use VR according to me right now. But uh, those of you who used Oculus, if you've ever tried lying down with the Oculus, but really think about this. If I'm sitting and watching Netflix on a huge screen, मैं ऐसे तो नहीं बैठा रहूँगा. I want to recline थोड़ा सा. But when I recline and try to lie down on a cushion with my Oculus, it shows me that line which says, oh, you're outside of your area or something like that. What's it called? When you set up the boundary area, right? The minute you lie down, it says, oh, you're outside the boundary area. Or if you the minute you recline, there's a wall or something. It'll say, no, the wall is outside the boundary area, you're too close to the wall. Fuck, bro, it's really annoying. And if you try to lie down, the screen doesn't go on top. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but it just stops like this. So you can't actually lie down with a current device. You have to always be at like a little bit at an angle. Annoying. So funny that they showed this. I don't know if you guys caught this, but beginning half they were all like, "Oh yeah, you can use Keynote, Pages, Numbers," and now they're like Microsoft Excel. Let's not forget, most of the world does not use Pages and Keynote. Keynote, okay, but Sheets. What's Apple's version of Sheet? Numbers. Most of the world doesn't use that, right? So I'm glad that they had that foresight. कि ठीक है, bro. We still have to show a little bit Excel and Microsoft because most people are like, like I use I use Google Sheets though. Like I use Microsoft Sheets. So good to see this, bro. Nice Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. This I forgot what it was. Reality com- Rea- Reality Composer Pro. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is actually. I totally missed this. I don't even remember. Is this like a scene creator, like somewhat like Unreal or something? Not so sure about this. But my guess is okay. I don't know actually. I don't know what Reality Composer Pro is. I missed that. ठीक है, Lightroom. Fine. This is Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. From Touch ID to Face ID to Optic ID. Third generation we're in right now. Very interesting because what it implies is that if somebody else wears your headset, the headset immediately knows that it's somebody else. So, one thing you can probably do with that is separate profiles. Right now, you don't have profiles on your phone. And I'm pretty sure some of you here are going to be like, oh, Android has profiles. Bro, who cares about Android? Come on. Right? But phone doesn't have profiles as such. Um, Safari now does. Chrome has separate profiles. But very likely that with this headset, when you wear it, it knows who it is. Right? So that's your basic unlocking. But the interesting thing, right? The reason they showed this, where you look stays private, is because it's a huge privacy concern, right? Because right now, you know that you're on YouTube right now. YouTube does have analytics, right? A normal person, right? Somebody who's just a user will say that, oh, like Instagram is collecting my data, like Twitter is collecting my data. It's called analytics, guys. Like, I mean, like devs, designers, we know this shit, right? Analytics, we look at our analytics, we go to Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Amplitude, and we see how users are using our app, right? We know that a certain flow has a conversion rate because we can tell that this is where a drop off occurred. We can tell that most people did not reach this page, maybe because the button was not obvious or something like that, right? So, analytics, very normal thing. We use that to literally make our products better. But if this did not exist, right, this thing here, it gets into Black Mirror territory because in fact, this guy said it also. If you guys remember, he said something like, "The eyes give away a lot, right? The eyes fucking do give away a lot, bro. When you're in front of somebody, in front of a chick or someone, a guy, your pupils dilate, right? Like, it's a very clear giveaway sometimes. Or if you're giving side eye, right? You're like looking at somebody like this. You can tell that what this person is probably thinking of. So yes, the eyes do give away a lot of information, right? There's this phrase, muhavra, whatever. The eyes are the windows to the soul. On a biological level, eyes are technically the windows to the brain, bro. Because literally, your eyes are directly connected to your brain, right, through the optic nerve. So this is a big privacy feature, very needed. The way they described it was basically this part, which is you looking at something, right? So let's say you looked at, it's the equivalent of this, right? Let's say you're on TikTok. TikTok is banned in India. So let's say you're on Reels and you're looking at a dance reel or something, and Instagram suddenly is like, oh my God. And you know what happens to your explore page, right? You know what happens to your explore page, right? If you spend a little too long looking at a dance reel or something like that, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Now imagine if you knew you were looking at the reel, bro. That's not good. I don't want Instagram to know that. I especially don't want TikTok to know that. But it already does because it can tell that I looked at it a little longer than I normally do or whatever, right? They've got that level of analytics. And so the algo takes that and it cycles through. It's like more, show more of this. Because person's spending more time, so show them more, right? It could get very Black Mirror if it knew how to do this. So basically, what Apple said was, this is not going to be shared, right? Developers, if you're building something on this, you will not get to have that data. That data cannot be collected because it's separate, and it stays on device, right? So good to see that separation. People are a little too quiet on that Instagram example, so I'm going to move on. The most advanced VR headset? No, they did not use the word VR. They did not use the word headset. The most advanced personal electronics device ever. That should tell you everything you need to know about positioning. Because right after this, they showed the price. But right before this, what they said was the devices that you spend on, the best home theater system, the best, I think, audio system, your MacBooks and all this, your TV and all this, all of those combined will still not be as good as this because this is the best advanced electronics device ever. What it also tells you is, from a psychological perspective, the reason they brought up those examples, of the home theater and all this, is because those are purchases people already make. So, from a consumer perspective, people might have a budget for TV kharidna hai, right? I want to buy a home theater system and all that stuff. But having a budget for something like this, which doesn't exist, is difficult, especially now that it's $3,500. But I think in UX, this is called what is it? I'm forgetting the name. It's called the anchoring bias effect or something. So when you anchor it with all these devices, but it's still not as good, you know that for a good headset, computer, and TV, it's at least a couple $1,000s. So that's the anchoring effect. That's why it's 3,500. But yeah, spatial computer bolo. Exactly. It's a spatial computer, guys. It's not a headset. So guys, with that, we come to the end of our stream. Very nice to see this on a desk. Nice that they showed this because this kind of gives you it gives you a perspective of scale. Because normally when you see this somewhere like this, you have no idea how zoomed in this is, right? Good you show this because this now shows you human scale compared to hands, compared to keyboard devices that you're familiar with. This is pretty much also on a very practical design note. This is also the reason why you guys need mock-ups. You know what I mean? Like, I know that a lot of you guys in your case studies do not include any mock-ups. And I think that's wrong. And here's why. When you show screens in your case studies and it's just screens like this, that's not how it's actually going to be used. How it's actually going to be used is with a cracked screen or a screen guard. And let's say you're designing Swiggy's rider app. It's not actually going to be in that high fidelity retina display in the how it looks in the case study. It's going to be on a shit Android phone with a cracked screen, screen guard, bulky case in the sun, attached on a fucking scooter. It's going to be on a scooter, and you're driving, and you're going to be looking like this. So if you're making a case study, a design case study, dude, you need a mock-up of that exact scenario because that shows that you've thought through the whole thing. So if you've designed, let's say, a meditation app, dude, make sure you can try to get a mock-up of somebody actually meditating, and then they have this thing which is a phone, right? It doesn't even need to be a mock-up. Show somebody sitting in Zen mode, and let's say you've designed a card or something like this, right? Like you've designed some UI. Show it behind them, bro. An example of this would be How do movies show you texting? How do movies show texting? Because texting happens in the phone, right? Have you noticed this? Either they show you the UI, but then it's sometimes you can tell the fake UI that they're using some green screen. And most annoying thing for UI designers watching movie UIs. But what they sometimes show is the text message comes out like this, right? They show it in that AR type style. That's a visual representation. So in your case studies, do not miss mock-ups, right? Even if it's you telling your photographer friend, please, bro, come over. Let's shoot some. Let's shoot me holding this phone, right? Or let's shoot some stuff. Question here around I really struggle finding mockups. What's the best mockup site? The good news around this is you can now use Midjourney to generate these mockups. So think deeply about what does it really look like when somebody is using this? What scenario are they in? Where are they? And then make that image. Mockups, mockups, mock up. A mock up shows reality. It shows you what it really looks like. Do not miss that. All right. That is it for our stream. Wonderful, quite a long one, no? I hope you guys had a lot of fun. This was a long stream, but I enjoyed it a lot. Actually, going through all of this stuff with you guys, this very much felt like a 10K designer session, minus the breakout rooms where after this you or in between this, I would have given you guys some prompts or something to go talk about it or whatever. Feels like a 10K session without the breakout rooms and without the back and forth, right? This is all monologue. I'm just telling you this. But we were able to get into a lot of depth today, cover a lot of examples, right? Um, I hope this was useful to you. I hope this gave you a designer's perspective on things. We do have videos around this coming out. Create a life, bro. How can you not make videos about this? We will do that. Outside of this, 10K designers cohort, 3 days to go. If you're really interested, submit your application before these 3 days. You will have a few more days to make the payment and all that stuff because Jan 10th is when we close. However, Jan 24th is when we start. So this is some time. Link in the description. But thanks a lot, guys. I love doing this. Please share this with your friends. Help me get some reach. And hit that like button. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.